Good afternoon, friends. This video on one of the important change as proposed by Clause 100 in Finance Bill 2021 pertaining to GST input tax credit in the hands of recipient or buyer of goods or services. There are four conditions for availing credit under Section 16, subsection 2. As a buyer or recipient, you should have tax invoice copy. You must have received goods or services. Your supplier must have paid taxes. You, as a recipient and buyer, may have paid the taxes to your supplier. And if supplier defaulted your credit, recipient credit can be denied. We have discussed these section 16 subsection 2 clause C provision at length in different video about the validity. If supplier does not deposit even after collection, what is going to be consequences? But for understanding sake, if supplier does not deposit, credit may be denied in the hands of recipient or buyer of goods or services. And last, as a recipient, you must be regularly filing GST return. What is the change proposed? They are going to insert new subclause. Section 16, subsection 2, subclause AA. And it's saying, as a recipient and buyer, you are availing credit on invoice or debit note raised by the supplier. Such invoice or debit note must be furnished by the supplier in their GSTR 1. And that must be communicated by the supplier to the recipient. This is what the new subclause going to be inserted. So meaning thereby, apart from four condition, another condition such invoice or debit note must be furnished by the supplier in their GSTR 1. So little analytics I want to discuss with all of you. What is the relevance of then Rule 36 sub Rule 4, which talks about capping of credit on invoice or debit note not uploaded by the supplier, right? And we all were debating that this rule is contradictory, ultra vires with the provision of GST Act. Rightly so, when this provision which is proposed and to be effected from a date, this is going to be notified, prospective. So for the past period, if I am satisfying four conditions and my supplier has not filed the GSTR 1, my credit should not be denied, and there should not be any capping provision from Rule 36 sub Rule 4 perspective. So this change which is being proposed helping me to prove Rule 36 sub Rule 4 ultra vires the provision of GST Act. Part 1. Part 2. What is the relevance of 2A or 2B? When this provision is coming now and this is going to be notified once finance bill get passed and corresponding clause getting inserted in all respective state GST Act, Union Territory GST Act, then the meaning is this 2A or 2B, whether my credit, recipient credit is dependent on 2A or 2B. It is becoming very clear. Now this clause is going to be prospective, so my credit should not be dependent on 2A or 2B. If I'm satisfying my four condition of section 16 subsection 2, this is what coming out. So what happened? This 2A, 2B reference, to me it is directory in nature. For me as a recipient, I must satisfy four condition plus one, which is being proposed by Finance Bill 2021 and going to be notified once Finance Bill get enacted and respective clause gets inserted in respective state SGST Act or Union Territory GST Act. Having said that, there are certain things which we must follow. Whenever we go to a bank, there is know your customer. Similarly, in GST, for availing credit, it is becoming very important. You should know your supplier. So your supplier must be regularly filing correct GSTR1, furnishing the relevant invoice or debit note on which you are availing credit and making payment of tax. This is very, very important. And to substantiate my argument, let me tell you, Rule 59, Sub-Rule 6 clearly saying if any taxpayer who is filing monthly 3B, if he fails to file preceding 2-month GSTR 3B, then he will not be able to file GSTR 1. If it is quarterly filer or furnishing invoice through invoice furnishing facility, and he fails to file 3B for the preceding quarter, then he will not be able to file GSTR 1 for the succeeding quarter. This is what, as per Rule 59, Sub-Rule 6. When we go back to Rule 21, Rule 21 talks about that the credits should be availed as per the Section 16 of CGST Act, and this is going to be the provision, fifth condition for availing credit by the recipient and buyer. Second, if there is a mismatch in GSTR 1 versus GSTR 3B for any or more tax period, then what happened? Rule 21 talks about that proper officer can initiate cancellation of GST number if credit which is being availed in contravention of Section 16 or GSTR 1 does not match it with GSTR 3B for any or more tax period, your GST number liable for the cancellation, and this may be initiated under Rule 21 as proposed and amended from 22nd December 2020. Having said that, now what is way forward? Even for the eBay bill generation, you would be knowing that if you fail to file your GSTR 3B for consecutive 2 tax period, you will not be able to generate your eBay bill. For quarterly filer, again the tax period referred consecutive 2 tax period. Bear in your mind now what government is looking into. Government is now looking into, if I'm a taxpayer, and listen very carefully, if I'm a taxpayer, whatever I'm filing in my GSTR1, which is my outward tax liability, gets auto-populated in GSTR 3B. And whatever credit I'm availing on the basis of invoice or debit note furnished by my supplier in their GSTR1, getting auto-populated in 2A, which is dynamic, and 2B, which is static statement, getting auto-populated as a credit in my GSTR 3B. This is going to be automized in time to come. It's a transition time period. That's the reason these fields are given as an editable option. You can edit wherever you want, but in time to come, these are going to be auto-populated. My GSTR1 shows my liability in GSTR 3B, and my credit coming in table 4 of GSTR 3B getting reflected and auto-populated from GSTR 1 of my supplier coming in GSTR 2B, then this edit option would be taken away. So government is working on automizing these process. So know your supplier. So this is the amended provision, White Clause 100 of Finance Bill 2021, but having lot of scope, and we can start discussion even on validity of Rule 36 sub Rule 4, whether supplier pays the taxes or not. This validity and the challenge can also be seen because this provision which is coming in as per clause 100, that invoice and debit note must be furnished in GSTR 1 by the supplier, can be seen helping to such writ petition which is pending before High Court for Rule 36 sub Rule 4, Section 16 subsection 2 clause C for supplier to pay taxes. Let's wait and watch, but days are ahead when we must know our supplier and we must ensure that we are tax compliant, and tax return system going to be automized for my auto population coming from GSTR 1 for outward tax liability and credit from GSTR 1 filed by my supplier. So this is one of the important change as proposed in Finance Bill 2021. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for number of GST update. Thank you. Thank you very much.